The NFC South just felt a tremor, and Atlanta is standing right at the center of it. Something is shifting. Something big. A move so unexpected, so explosive, it could crack open the entire division and reshape the Falcons' road back to the Super Bowl. And it starts with a rival that's collapsing under its own weight. For days now, whispers have been circling through league offices, front offices, locker rooms, the kind of whispers that make players look up from their playbooks and coaches tighten their jawlines. The New York Giants are considering letting go of Russell Wilson. Yes, that Russell Wilson. The veteran. The survivor. The quarterback who has spent more than a decade carving defenses apart and dragging teams through the fire with him. The Giants' season has become a storm they can't escape. Their defense is leaking points like a broken dam. 31 a game. A pass rush that barely breathes. A secondary that loses track of receivers like shadows slipping into the dark. Their rebuild after the Daniel Jones era hasn't just stalled, it's sinking. And when a team starts drowning, it looks for anything to stay afloat, even if that means throwing its quarterback to another franchise. The rumor is simple, but the implications are enormous. Atlanta could land Russell Wilson for a 2026 third-round pick. It sounds unreal, a low cost for a leader who has spent 14 seasons proving he can change entire locker rooms with one drive, one speech, one impossible throw. Wilson has eclipsed 43,000 passing yards, thrown over 330 touchdowns, rushed for more than 5,000 yards, and built a reputation for refusing to quit until the final second disappears from the clock. Even now, deep into his career, he's grading in the mid-80s on PFF and giving the Giants' offense a pulse every time he's healthy. He's still dangerous. Still smart. Still capable of delivering a dagger throw when the moment demands it. And that's exactly why this move is terrifying for the rest of the NFC South. Because if the Falcons decide to pull that trigger, if they add Wilson's experience, IQ, and late-game magic to their roster, the entire division could be flipped upside down, and the road to a championship could suddenly open just a little wider. Russell Wilson wasn't supposed to matter this much. Not at this point in his career. Not after the hamstring injury that slowed him in Week 3. But somehow, he came back sharper, calmer, and even more dangerous. When Wilson returned, the Giants' offense didn't just improve, it woke up. Suddenly they were moving with rhythm again, gaining efficiency, hitting explosive plays, and finding ways to survive late-game chaos. It was like someone had poured a spark back into a dimming fire. And that's exactly why Atlanta can't ignore the possibility of bringing him in. Because right now, Desmond Ridder carries the weight of an entire franchise on his shoulders. A quarterback still fighting to prove he can be the guy, still searching for consistency, still growing. And growth needs support. Imagine this, a veteran who has lived through playoff heartbreak, miracle comebacks, and pressure-packed fourth quarters, standing beside Ridder every single week. A quarterback who can escape collapsing pockets, turn broken plays into first downs, and stretch defenses with his legs just enough to make coordinators panic. Wilson isn't the star who runs for 800 yards anymore, but he'll still take off when it matters. 200 rushing yards. A handful of touchdowns. The kind of scrambles that rip the soul out of a defense on 3rd and 7. In the red zone, the place where Atlanta's season has repeatedly stalled, Wilson has built a career on composure. He slows the moment down. He finds the seams others overlook. He sees the field like someone who has been here hundreds of times. And the Falcons desperately need that. Their red zone issues have strangled drives, silenced crowds, and cost them winnable games. Then there are his numbers, not as decoration, but as proof he still has fuel left. This season alone, Wilson is completing nearly 67% of his passes, pushing toward 2,500 yards in 10 games with more than a dozen touchdowns. He still protects the ball, still creates off-script, still finds ways to squeeze throws into impossible windows. Over 300 rushing yards and multiple rushing scores only reinforce the point. And under pressure? He remains one of the league's calmest operators, grading in the mid-80s, refusing to panic, refusing to quit. Throughout his career, his big-time throws have turned losses into celebrations and broken moments into unforgettable memories. Over 450 of them. Each one a reminder that he's more than a veteran, he's a closer. Now imagine the ripple effect across the NFC South if he arrived in Atlanta. A division already unpredictable suddenly faces a Falcons team with a seasoned general leading their offense. A roster that's already hungry suddenly gains belief. And a team that's been stuck on the edge of something bigger might finally get the push they've been missing. If Russell Wilson arrived in Atlanta, it wouldn't just be a roster move, it would be a spark. A shift in the air. The moment when a rising team suddenly realizes it's no longer dreaming, it's building. Think about what this offense could become. Ritter growing into his role. Wilson bringing a decade of wisdom, late-game bravery, and a calm voice in the chaos. Two quarterbacks with different strengths, creating tension for defenses that have no idea which threat is coming next. One extending plays with youth, the other tearing apart coverages with experience. It's the kind of combination that changes a season. Quietly, the Falcons have built something real, a young core that fights, a defense that gets better every month, weapons who are only beginning to understand their potential. But every rising team hits a moment when it needs one last piece. The veteran who steadies the ship when the waves start to rise. Wilson could be that piece. Odds makers might see numbers, 5,000 to 1, 2,500 to 1, but inside a locker room, belief doesn't come from odds. It comes from moments. Moments when someone steps into the huddle and says, "Follow me." Moments when a broken play becomes a miracle. Moments when a fourth-quarter drive changes an entire season. That's what Wilson has lived for 13 years. That's what he brings. But the story isn't written yet. It depends on a quiet debate behind closed doors, the Giants deciding if they're ready to let go, and the Falcons deciding how badly they want to rise right now. Do they lean into their youth movement, or do they seize the window opening right in front of them? Because the division is vulnerable. The NFC South isn't ruled by giants anymore, it's open field. One bold move could tilt the balance for years. One leader could shift the identity of an entire franchise. Imagine Wilson stepping under center in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Imagine the crowd rising when the huddle forms. Imagine the Falcons' offense marching downfield with confidence instead of hesitation. Red zone drives ending with precision, not frustration. Games that used to slip away suddenly turning into wins. With Atlanta's young playmakers and Wilson's command of the moment, this team wouldn't just be competitive, it would be feared. This is more than a trade rumor. It's a crossroads. A chance for a franchise that has lived through heartbreak, rebuilds, and close calls, to finally rewrite its story. If the Falcons take this shot, it could mark the beginning of a new era, one defined by courage, leadership, and belief.